Friday, everybody. Can you all believe that we are almost through the month of July? Time has been moving. I want to shout out my little cousin, True, and his new bride, Miss Chrissy. Shout them out. They had a fabulous wedding. Fabulous. I like to see the young people in love and making commitments to each other. So today's episode of Friday Jones Uncensored is being dedicated to the young couple. And I am your host, Friday Jones. And if you do not know what the purpose of this show is, let me remind you. I made a little banner. We are here totally to be creating a reparations mindset. And what a reparations mindset is looking at all things politically, community-wise, elections, all policy things through that reparations lens to make sure that we are always getting what it is that we need in community to be the best Americans that we can be. And so without further ado, a lot has gone on. I thought I was going to pop in tonight and we were going to do a slow walk through the state of Illinois survey. We are going to get to the state of Illinois survey, but y'all know I stay on Hermeet Dhillon's head. I don't know where she came from, but I wish she would get on her broom and fly back to where she came from. This week, she has posted a lot, and I want to share. And so in order for me to do that, what I am going to do is go into my little clock that I made so we can have a quick, it's not going to be quick, y'all. It's going to be about 15 minutes. It's not going to be a reparations minute, but I'm going to run my clock, and then we're going to bring that screen in so we can get right into it. Give me a second. All right, you all know what the ringing of the bell means. This is my Twitter. If you haven't seen these things, these are things that I've posted from our Assistant Attorney General Hermeet Dhillon. And this is what she has been posting this week. We have to remember, not only this week did Congress pass the bill that has now joined the United States military with Israel's military and surveillance state, we need to remember that Hermeet Dhillon's law firm represents the state of Israel, and this is public information. You can look it up. They are wanting evangelical churches and Black American churches to go to Israel, to tour Israel, to basically perpetuate their ideology that they are the chosen people, and you are supposed to, I guess, go as a good Christian to recognize them as the chosen people, even though you will be called Goy. But that's a whole nother show for a whole nother time. Let us get into what our Assistant Attorney General Hermeet Dhillon posted. She says she almost teared up this week. We've come a long way, baby, from civil rights at the time I was nominated to now. Quote, a total refocus of our mission and our people to serve all Americans, not just a few and not just pet projects with liberty and justice for all. So I guess the Negroes who trained white folks in America how to be civilized and who established civil rights, who had dogs sicked on them, who had fire hoses placed on them, who had Medgar Evers murdered, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King murdered. I guess we're the pet people in this scenario, and the refocus on our people. I don't know who our people is, but apparently it ain't Black people because we're the pets in her scenario. Meanwhile, at the ranch, I also wanted to share, and this is her posting from July 8th. She's standing in front of 100 new attorneys and staff to our ranks today. She's honored to swear them in. These civil rights warriors will enforce our nation's laws to benefit all Americans, not just a select few. It's a privilege to have them on board. So we're going to test this, you guys. And as we stay focused on our reparations mindset, we have got to get litigious, honey, because you know what was here at the founding of the United States in 1776. It was the establishment of the United States Constitution, which is the highest law of the land, and we got to be about that life. We have to be about reparations. We can't be afraid to sue people. If we have to go in pro temp, meaning standing in for ourselves, we have to bring that energy back of Thurgood Marshall, because these 100 people, these people are not here for us. They're not here for the Black Americans, for the American freedmen descendants who gave the United States civil rights. There would be no civil rights without us. We are the beginning, the alpha and the omega when it comes to the goodness that is derived from this country, period. And I don't think these are the people who are going to be standing up for our 14th Amendment rights and our equal protections. And I assure you of that, because let's go to the next slide, shall we? More on Assistant Attorney General Hermeet Dhillon. Let me cue this up for you, but she says, this is the post. Oh, we don't have a date on this post. July 23rd.
The numbers don't lie. So we engage in a statistical analysis, which is how we do things at the DOJ. We don't just make accusations. We got the evidence, we looked at it, and Black and Latino / Hispanic applicants were many times more likely to be admitted than their white or Asian counterparts who had higher scores. Those numbers don't lie. So they clearly used these so-called hardship factors as a workaround and as a proxy for race. That's illegal in the United States after students are fair admissions. They've had 3 years to comply. This is one of several medical school investigations. And now, you know, I may not care if your underwater basket weaving graduate has a different admission standard so much, but I definitely care that doctors are not being admitted on the basis of their merit and on the basis instead of these woke factors that are no longer legal in the United States. So we're going after it everywhere we find it. And UCSD is a recipient of tens of millions of dollars of funds from the federal government, including the Department of Justice and Department of Education. So this is some serious money, and it's some serious business for our country.
All right, she's disrespectful, y'all. She's a white supremacist, in my opinion. Let me qualify that. In my opinion, this is a commentary, so I'm gonna put that disclaimer out here. This is for education and commentary purposes, and she talks like a white supremacist. The idea of being woke, I don't want to deal with people sleep. If you driving on the road, I want you wide awake. If you are in class and you're supposed to be paying attention, you're a student, you're supposed to be learning, I want you woke. I want you wide awake. If you are in business and you are attending business meetings and then you have to report back to your superior, or you need to be training your subordinates, I need you woke. I don't know what she's talking about. And I also don't know what history she didn't learn in the Daughters of the Confederacy of the United States educational system, but she seems like a daughter of the Confederate education system in the way that she talks, because American freedmen had hospitals where we were amongst ourselves. As far as I'm concerned, Hermeet Dhillon, the United States of America can bring back the Freedmen's Bureau. It can bring back funding for our own medical schools. It can bring back funding for freedmen hospitals. It can bring back funding for separate education, as far as I'm concerned, because when the enslaved folks were freed and General Sherman went to talk to the pastors and the elders and the leaders in our community, we didn't want any part of America's education. We didn't want that. And for her to say that woke, she doesn't understand that when doctors like in Harvard were doing their medical training, we had at times the person who was the janitor sitting and learning and then turning around and teaching things that these so-called educated people couldn't grasp conceptually. Heart surgery and surgeries where we were showing the techniques because the so-called educated and privileged and meritus people could not understand and comprehend, but the janitor, the black janitor, the Negro janitor could understand it. I don't think she is familiar with our midwifery and the level of sophistication and education that our midwives have and that doulas have, and how when they are birthing our children, they're not murdering our children, because it was white folks who developed clamps to pull babies out of a vagina. Only a man who's meritus would think of something asinine like that, to rip a baby's head out of its body as it's being pushed out by its mother through the birth canal. Only an idiot would think of that. But she wants now to penalize these schools, but give us our own. We don't need the micro and macro aggressions from staff. We don't need to be around elitist people and families who think that they're better than when they're not. We need to be able to be free in our own thoughts and how we cure our bodies. And we know that the medical field basically is built to support the body and the physical manifestation of the white male, not other persons, not other people, certainly not Black women, certainly not Black men. And so she's gone down this rabbit hole, and I just need you guys to know, and I'm not done with her yet. We got one more that I need to pull out, because she's been on a spree, and I follow her because she's nonsensical. But one more. Federally funded American universities cannot earmark foreign funds for Chinese students. The Civil Rights Division, the Department of Justice, is investigating illegal actions at Harvard and potentially other universities taken against students on the basis of national origin. I got an answer for this for her, because she's full of it.
There are $630 million of earmarked contributions from Chinese sources to Harvard, and that's in addition to several billion from other countries as well. But they're earmarked for Chinese recipients, not Chinese American, not American, but Chinese recipients. And so that's problematic under Title VI. So we've launched an investigation today to see the extent to which there are violations of federal law. Harvard cannot take our federal tax dollars, which, by the way, it has trillions of dollars of outstanding grants, billions a year, and then also discriminate against Americans. All the money that flows into Harvard from foreign sources must be made available to all without regard to national origin. So this is going to be an examination at Harvard, and you should stay tuned. There'll be some for some of the other top institutions that are taking this foreign money as well. There are $630 million of earmarked contributions.
So here's the thing. We know Harvard, China, fine. China's got money, as much money as the United States have money. China actually has more critical metals that it mines in China than we do here in the United States. And so I'm not upset about her cracking down on foreign money being available for foreign students per se. China, we know, I mean, my God, even here in California, we've got, they are just in places and trading information with the nation of China, from Harvard, from education and research. We had someone here in a school district in California who was students who were never even in the United States getting high school diplomas. There have been some things going on with China. So I'm not here as a proponent for, oh my God, why is she doing this? However, what I posted was this, because if you're going to play this game, then I need you to be fair, right? Harvard University offers several scholarships, fellowships, research grants for Israeli students and scholars, as well as opportunities for Americans studying in Israel. Top programs include Work Israel Graduate Fellowship, the Wexner Israel Fellowship at Harvard Kennedy School, the Kaliniyat Postdoctoral Fellowship at Harvard Medical School. And here's some detail just from a simple Google search. Why is Hermeet Dhillon, why is she talking about the Chinese at Harvard? Why she's not attacking and talking about these programs? Is it because her law firm maybe represents Israel? And you can go to some of my other shows because I've talked about it multiple times. I've pulled up the document, the foreign document, where if you're operating in the United States as a foreign entity, you have to report that to the federal government. And the Hermeet Dhillon law firm is a representative of Israel. And so is that why she's not attacking Israeli scholarships that are funded for Israeli students? Isn't that the same thing as what she's talking about with the Chinese here? Is that not the same thing? Federally funded American universities cannot earmark foreign funds, right? For foreign students. Is that not the same thing? So I think we need to call her out. And, I don't know. Maybe this is the time for Ed Bloom to get those same Chinese students for the lawsuit that he did to knock us Black students off of Harvard's campus. Maybe those same Chinese students need to give Ed Bloom a call and say, hey, Ed, we think we need you to defend us because the Department of Justice is not going after Israeli grants for their students, and they're coming after us. And I don't know if y'all have equal protection under the 14th Amendment. I don't know how that works. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just saying, since you Chinese students allowed yourselves to be a proxy against the Black folks, maybe you'll allow yourselves to be a proxy to defend yourselves, because our Assistant Attorney General Hermeet Dhillon is not nailing to the cross the Israeli funding that's coming in at Harvard for Israeli students. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. I'm just putting that out there. And so that was our reparations minute. I just, look, I'm a fair person, but my philosophy, my reparations mindset is, first of all, we're going to get reparations. Let's make that clear. Second of all, if we have to ensure that everyone loses everything else that they have in order for us to get it, that's the warrior path we're willing to walk. That's the spiritual warfare we're willing to have. Because just like Carmelo Anthony, people are like, oh my God, you people are so racist and divisive. No. Down there in Texas, there have been other students that have stabbed other young people, and they get like 6 years. They don't get 35 years. So either everyone's going to get the same 6 years, or the whole thing can fall down. That is the reparations mindset. Either you're a fair American or you're not. It's not about being divisive. It's about having the same applications of law. And when the law cannot be applied evenly, then we got to make some changes. And again, us people, us Black people, us American freedmen, FBA, ADOS, however you want to identify yourself in a modern age and era, but us Negro people, which is the longest census designation that we've had in this country, we have to become litigious, period. That's the place that we lose often. It's always been the court. Since Dred Scott days, it's been the court system where we have lost. And we have to make ground in a modern context. So that's all I have on that. I do want to talk. I'm actually wearing, y'all can see my little HU, Howard University, whoop, whoop, class of 93. Proud Lady Bison. I love my alma mater. I've had some very, very magnificent memories, not only on the campus, but with my DC family, right there down on Bryant Street, at the bottom of Howard's campus. And so, people today are responding, and I'm not going to pass the email that kind of went around, and, somebody's running for the secretary at Howard University, and she's revisiting the fact that the federal government took away $65 million in funding from Howard University. And the email talked about Project 25, and the woman who's running for office, this is why, people didn't want a Black woman for president. Ma'am, let me tell you something. As a reparationist, and I believe the woman who sent it, her name is McKinney. So if any of you know Miss McKinney, who sent that email text to like all the Howard alumni, yes, it made its way to me too. Kamala Harris and the DNC convention that was in Chicago was the beginning of the ending of California reparations and the bills that Senator Bradford drafted. It was when Senator Bradford from California, and if you remember that convention, honey, California was front and center. We had a huge section. Newsom was there. You saw the fanfare. You saw the red, white, and blue. California was front and center at that DNC convention. And Kamala Harris was announced. And that's when it began to fall apart. And I didn't look before the show of when that was, but what I can tell you is I personally reached out to some folks in Chicago that had ties, direct ties to Kamala Harris. And I said, look, these are your colleagues that you worked with when you were state attorney general. We are trying to get Senator Bradford's bills passed. And we need you to make some calls. Us advocates need you to make some calls to move some things around because it's not looking good. That never happened. She didn't do that. She didn't commit to doing it. That's not what happened. What happened is all of a sudden Gavin Newsom wanted to gut the American Freedmen Agency bill that Senator Bradford drafted. What happened was that $12 million funding, that kind of maneuvered a little bit, but it was redirected ultimately to Cal State University, where the governor is one of the trustee board members for Cal State. And he gets to select 16 members of that board. So basically, he diverted reparations money to a place where he has less people and more control. What happened all of a sudden was Kavon Ward's land back bill, because there was no Freedmen Agency, it made it to the governor's office and it was vetoed. The other two bills didn't make it because Isaac Bryant got into a fight with Bill Ira-eli and refused to bring the bills to the floor. And then he chose, I forget the lady's name, but she got like 2 Black people in her whole entire district to put the bill in the suspense file. And then when Reparations called to call her out for it, because she had really no Black people in her district at all, she wanted to play ignorant. Like she wasn't part of it. You're part of it. Your name is on it. You're part of it. And I say all of that to say, Kamala Harris, where is she with regards to Hermeet Dhillon? Where is Kamala Harris? This lady has inducted all of these people to represent us, Civil Rights Department. We ain't heard a peep from Kamala Harris, but she wants to run in 2028. She is a Howard University graduate. Hermeet Dhillon, as far as I'm concerned, is her countryman. I don't know. She looked like Brahminish to me. Isn't that the highest caste in India? Their families should know each other. She hasn't said anything to this woman. I don't want to hear from you Howard University people about how America wasn't ready for a Black woman. Because the Black woman didn't, she sat on national TV in an interview and said, I'm not just going to do something for Black people. She attended that in Chicago, another Chicago thing. She attended that Black journalists, National Association of Black Journalists. They interviewed her and asked her about reparations, and she fumbled the ball. And so now Howard University, let's get to it. Howard University, 64 million in the hole, but they knew they were 64 million in the hole. This was issued January of this year. Howard University announcement that the cost of tuition will not increase next year. They actually wound up increasing it 7.5%. But for 2026, 2027, there was not supposed to be an undergraduate increase, nor professional tuition or mandatory fees. This decision reflects their commitment to preserving access to the institution, upholding academic excellence and student experience that defines our university. Okay, this is Wayne Fredericks. Wayne Fredericks, I was there when he was there. He hung out on the yard when I hung out on the yard. I've called his office a couple of times to talk about doing something for reparations. I ain't heard back from President Fredericks. And he is the president at the time. They have Nicole Hannah Jones there, basically being Ida B. Wells, for real, in real time, at Howard University right now. They got Duke Professor Dr. Sandy Darity teaching there right now. And they have at Thurgood Marshall, they have Justin Hansford over at the law school, who is part of this international UN Forum of People of African Descent. So they got all of that magic happening. I, reparationists, have not heard from Wayne Fredericks. Haven't heard from him. I've called his office. I have not. But I say that because the email, again, that I got today was talking about how Project 25, the reparationists were paying attention before Project 25. But while all of the Greek sorority, they had all those pictures of all the AKAs, of all the Delta Sigma Thetas, of all the Kappas. They didn't have so many pictures of the men. It was all the women, the Zeta Phi Betas. They had all of them Greek women. Kamala Harris, black woman. Kamala Harris, black woman. Where is she? Where is she on this? Why is she not sitting down talking to the reparationists that actually come out of Howard University? She got the same School of Business, School of B picture on the stairs that I have in my collection. I was there 4 years after her. I think Yvette Carnell was there 4 years after me. Why haven't we heard from our Lady Bison sister? It didn't need Project 2025 to talk about endowing the HBCUs. That is, Howard was literally founded after the Civil War. And so the students that it was intended to serve in teaching and nursing was, guess what? The American freedmen, the newly freed people. That's who Howard University was intended to serve. There should be tuition and scholarships for American freedmen students, period. Anytime I make a donation, and I don't have a lot of money, but if and when I send some, I say this should be for American freedmen students. I don't know what they do with the notes, but I send them because it's important to me. It's important if you want to talk to me about upholding the academic excellence and the experience of Howard University, then you got to go back to its founding with General Howard and understand what the institution was supposed to be for. Because I love Howard a little bit off mission in a modern context, is all I'm saying. But some of the brightest, smartest people come out of that institution. But you can't get mad and want to talk about Project 2025 when the reparationists had the thing. California was leading the way. And Kamala Harris got the nomination from the Democratic Party, and at that Chicago convention, they put the squash on California reparations. And they lost the momentum that we had, that we worked hard 5 years for. Shout out to CJ. Shout out to that coalition. Shout out to all the people that did the bus rides, to all the people who hosted over 100 town halls during the Reparations Commission hearings. Shout out to Camila Moore, Dr. Jovan Scott Lewis, Senator Bradford. Shout out to y'all. They're talking about holding the line on tuition comes after a difficult term. The university raised tuition, I guess, okay, in 2025, 2026, 7.5 above the previous year, but the federal government dropped its funding in 2021 to 2021 levels, clawing back $64 million. Howard University students and families that support them, the year was difficult because more than 40% of Howard students are on their Pell Grant eligible, and more than 70% receive some kind of need-based aid, such as grants and scholarships. The federal budget and the tax bill titled One Big Beautiful Bill reworked the Pell Grant program. If my kids weren't attending college right now, I wouldn't be able to get them there. And I I don't think we got any Pell Grants, but I say this just because the lending for parents changed so much. And I wouldn't have been able to qualify in the way that I did to send my kids to school just 10 years ago. And this is a significant loss. And the reparationists saw this. We saw this before Trump got into office for a second term. We saw this before Project 2025 was even a thing. But here it is now. And I've worked with people that have been invited to the White House during the Biden administration to talk about bills. I've worked with people now that we have a different administration. It doesn't mean that we don't stop and we get afraid and we hope something better comes down. We don't got time for that. I got one life. I blink my eyes and it'll be done. We each have about a quick minute to live. 100 years is not a lot of time to be on this planet. And because of that, Trump got in office. He wrote that platinum plan for Black folks. We got a group together and we went up to Capitol Hill. We talked to Republicans. We talked to Democrats about what his vision could look like through a reparations lens. Why? Because we build reparations mindsets here. Can't be afraid of these people. They know who they are. The question is, do you know who you are? That's the question. That's the question. So I'm not going to hop on this thing with Howard, but I wanted to bring this up because we got Hermeet Dhillon. Hermeet Dhillon is slashing everything. Y'all can go back and check my prior videos. She put the squash on Asheville, North Carolina reparations, my favorite reparations model. She put the squash on. She had the DOJ join Evanston reparations lawsuit. She brought the whole United States to fight Evanston's lawsuit. So this lady is not a friend of ours, but she looked like a Brahmin, like Kamala. She need to talk to her countrymen. She need to be nipping this in the bud. If you can squash reparations for California, you need to figure out how to get this lady off of our backs, period. And not have Black people from Howard University talking about America's not ready for a Black woman. Man, that Black woman didn't do anything about California reparations other than let it be squashed by Newsom, period. Why? Because she wanted that candidacy to run. So when people come to me and be talking about their politics and we should just, I don't know. I live a different kind of life. I'm here in these front lines pushing policy, and when people act a certain way, I don't think they're going to be better because they get elected into a position of power. When people are broke, when people don't have anything, that's who they really are. They get better when they have more because they already better when they have less. That's how the universe works. This idea that someone who didn't have anything to give is going to have something to give when she has the presidency, that's delusional. Y'all are delusional. And I know there are going to be people mad at me, but whatever. In response to that, look, this is not the best view, but I want to shout out ETM Media. I had seen this thing about the EEOC and the rule they're changing on the collection of data. And y'all wonder why they're changing the collection of data now? Because California reparationists who made sure to bring the collection of data for descendants of enslaved persons for American freedmen into data that would make its way to the federal government. They don't want to see us. Y'all think the EEOC is just under Trump? No. They started getting that data this year. This is the first year they getting that data. Never in the history of the United States of America has the census collected data on persons who were formerly enslaved or their descendants. And now that they're getting that data, just like they pulled back that J6 stuff, they don't want the EEOC collecting information. They don't want us to be able to fight discrimination when we know we see and feel it, when we see it in our paychecks. They don't want us. They don't want to have the data. If they don't have the data, well, they could say, well, we don't have that data. We stopped collecting it in 2026. We got to shut this down, okay? We need them to be collecting racial data, period. Otherwise, the EEOC, the only thing they're going to be able to defend is disability claims. They're not going to be able to defend discrimination claims on your behalf. So these hearings, they want to remove the reporting requirements. We need to push back on this. I might actually try and see if I could pull together a live group next week to go about these, because you have to submit your documents for requests no later than August 7th. There will be a public hearing held on August 11th. Even if you cannot attend in Washington, D.C., we got to get our voices heard. So I have to talk to my organization to see if we can pull something together next week, maybe next weekend, just to give to give this information out. But this document, which explains where you can send it, and I want to say it on the recording just so you can hear it. If you want to respond to the EEOC, you have to reference the regulatory information number 3046-AB37. And then you can either go to the portal at www.regulations.gov, follow the instructions for submitting a comment. You can fax 202-663-4114, or you can snail mail to Raymond Windmiller. He's the executive secretary for the EEOC at 131 M Street Northeast, Washington, D.C. 20507. I wanted to get that on tape. I'll make sure that I splice that up for you guys. But I'm going to get these documents out this week, and I'm going to talk to NAASD to make sure that we have organizations, Black organizations. This is a time where I'm going to be like, look, NAACP, y'all need to come on. The National Civics Organization, you need to come on. Urban League, you need to come on. Liberation Ventures, I don't really mess with y'all like that, but y'all want to be a Black organization, you need to come on. You need to be submitting a letter. Okay? This is not the time for folks to be choosing sides. I heard Dr. Cheryl Grills was on KBLA this morning. So Dr. Cheryl Grills, you go on and get Reggie Jones Sawyer and Don Tamaki. Go get your folks. This is affecting us all. This is not a time to be playing petty games. They need to be put on notice. And so we need to get some letters in there. So with all of that said, I want to shout out Net Friedman. She dropped this African Descent Citizens Reparations Commission survey. And I was like, who did this? Why are they doing this now? Like, who's behind this and what's going on? Because it's using that international language. And I told you guys, just like the United States went to the United Nations when Ghana was rallying people for reparations, and it said the United States is not going to be held to international laws that did not exist when slavery existed in the United States, which predates the UN itself. I think we're going to get our relief in the United States from the Constitution. And so this internationalizing the American freedmen experience, I don't think it's the right way to go. But I want to shout out Net because she put this out there, and we need to just walk through it. And I have to admit, if I, what's happening with the survey? Here we go. The artwork is beautiful. The artwork is gorgeous. I love the color screen and palette. However, if I saw something like this pop up in my email, I don't know that I would know what it's for, even though it has the words there. I would think this was like some sort of women's health survey. There should be a Black family, because part of reparations and the tenet for reparations is rebuilding family. That's something that has been destroyed generation after generation. And so it's a little misleading. And so I retweeted this. I put the survey also in the YouTube link for the show so that people could try and find it, because we need to participate in this. It's just, I would not have thought that this was about us or about reparations. It just doesn't look like that. And, you know, some people are visual. Anyway, they welcome people before completing the survey. They want you to look at their executive summary, which includes a history of racial harm and injustice against Black Illinoisans. They always want to push racial harm because they want to push race-based narratives. I am not one for running away from battles. However, in this administration where you have your DOJ person, you need to play a smarter game. You can't just do race-based. And if you haven't followed the whole ICBAR thing, even in the way that you guys are doing this, that ICBAR lawsuit, you have to, y'all got to be smarter. That's all I'm going to say. And some people are not understanding the legal side. And I think that that's intentional. I think there are people who understand the legal side and are not going to push things to where they need to be. And then I think there's intentional ignorance so that we can fail. Like there's intentional fostering, navigating us down certain hallways and pathways so that we can get to the place they want us to get to, which is that court where we can be trampled on in court by Hermeet Dhillon. That's just what I see. That's how I'm seeing things. So I want us to be smart. I want people to create this. I would not have guessed that this survey officially adopted a motion to develop 2 recommendations to create a data disaggregation bill that creates an ethnic category for descendants of slavery and requires every state agency to collect and report this data. Again, we see this happening while we got the EEOC trying to take it away, trying to take that data collection away. Why? Because they're already getting that kind of data from the state of California, thanks to folks like me who out here doing this work. The second thing that they are adopting is the creation of an Office of Descendants of U.S. Chattel Slavery that is responsible for genealogical tracing and verification of descendants who are Illinois citizens. Something else I support. You know, no one wants to say American freedmen, but they better understand what that is. They better get into the GOA's report and what they just did for the 1866 freedmen, treaty freedmen, the Indian freedmen. They need to understand expansion of knowledge. That's why we're here, for this reparations mindset. This survey is intended to be 10 to 15 minutes long. They want to know if you're a resident. Did you ever live there? Please enter your zip. I ain't never lived there, but I visited, so I put in the zip code to where I visited. I've been to Chicago several times, you know, over in that Grant Park area. That's actually one of the most beautiful cities that you will see. Anyway, do you see yourself as a descendant of people who were enslaved in the United States as a result of chattel slavery? We want to be in this survey, people saying yes. Although Illinois entered the Union as a free state, do you think it should acknowledge the history? Absolutely yes. How do you feel about Illinois creating a program? Strongly. What are your feelings about cash payments? This is America. There are 3 ways that we settle legal issues in this country. The number 1 is with compensation money, green dollars, period. The second way is we say we need you to stop doing something. That's called an injunction. The third way is you're going to complete what you started. But if you've been a raggedy contractor, I don't want you to complete nothing. What do I want? 1, money. That's what I want. I want cash money. Why? Because then I could go hire somebody else to get the job done. Do you understand? Stop letting people talk you out of cash. Well, cash isn't the only. Miss me with that. Everybody goes to court seeking money. You don't get into a car crash and you seeking, I don't know, education. You don't get into a car crash and then you're seeking housing vouchers. You get into a car crash, you want your medical bills paid with money. You want to pay your attorney with money, and then you want to walk away with some money. That's how this thing works here. People need to stop playing with this question. It's a tenet designated by the United Nations. Compensation, number 1. American way, number 1. Cash money. We're a capitalistic society. You don't go in front of, you go to make a business deal. Some people might barter because they need whatever the other entity has going on, but for the most part, somebody's selling something and they want some money, they want some stock, they want something of value that's tradable. Okay, Ranking some ideas. Rank policy ideas and how they could address harms caused by slavery. Free genealogical lineage tracing and descendant status verification. Something that came out of California. That's what we wanted. Creation of public credit unions specifically for descendants of chattel slavery. Well, I think we need to bring our Freedmen's Bank back, and that Freedmen's Bank needs to be all across the United States. I think we should have that. I heard that the AKAs just got a bank for members only. If you all don't know your history after that Civil War, after the Civil War, and it was the Negro soldiers that were investing in the Freedmen Bank, the only thing they could buy was U.S. Treasury T-bills. So when people want to talk about who built this country, we built it with our hands and with our dollars. Know your history. The creation of and full appropriation of a reparations trust descendant capital endowment program. That's something Narcan and Cobra are pushing. We need a Freedmen agency. We need a Freedmen agency at the federal level with oversight. I get it. This is the state of Illinois. But a bunch of different trust funds run by who? Are you FINRA regulated? Like, do you have Series 6 and licenses and all that kind of stuff? Because if not, no, I don't want that. America's government funds, general funds are already kind of slushy. Why would I got mixed feelings about that is all I'm saying. Creation of a land and property trust transfer surplus state land, absolutely yes. And state held debt forgiveness of fines from disadvantaged, sure, all of that. Rank public policy ideas and how well they would address harm caused by racial terror against enslaved people and their descendants. Again, if you're talking this, you need to just say American freedmen. And I hope the commission, somebody points one of the commissioners into listening to this, because you should have two categories of beneficiaries at a minimum, because you don't want to jeopardize your American freedmen political status from these racial harms that y'all are so insistent on sort of just making racial. That's going to be a hard, strict scrutiny thing, but if that's the route you want to go that route. Lifetime guarantee access to culturally competent mental health services provided at no cost. Historic markers and remembrances for atrocities. Creation of racial terror claims fund to provide compensation to descendants of individuals who were victims of documented racial terror and lynchings in Illinois. You know, the question is, are they still living in Illinois? Because one of the things that I learned from Senator, what's his name, out of New York, Senator Saunders out of New York, you know, he was like, if you left the state, then that's it. He didn't even care if you came there fleeing terror from the South, which we know a lot of people did in New York. So I would have questions around this racial terror claim fund. Remember, the J6er fund also went away. Why? Because they heard us social media talking about, not me specifically, but there were definitely Black folks talking about, well, we need to just go in and put in our claims, and all of a sudden that fund got shut down real quick at the federal level. Please rank policy ideas and how well they address harms for voting laws and loss of political rights. Pass a Reintegration and Civic Empowerment Act that aims to restore voting rights to individuals serving felony sentences in Illinois. Create repertory democracy fund to support descendant-led civic organizations. If the civic organization isn't like a C4 or a C7, we don't need no more C3s. I'm sorry. Not sorry. We don't need more C3s. If you're talking about politics and political powers, they got to be dollars for running candidates, period. Give individuals that have been convicted of crime the right to vote. Wage credits for formerly incarcerated descendants who perform prison labor. To me, all of these things are things that could be legislated now. I don't. Why are we waiting for a reparations program? I mean, anyway. Please rank the following ideas. Baby bonds, the federal government has actually enacted that. Descendant specific business startup grants, zero interest loans, guarantee payments, state incentive for unions, state job guarantees, zero interest. This reminds me of the Repair Act that the NAASD issued. This is what this reminds me of. Please rank additional policy ideas. Eliminate sentencing provisions with disparate racial effect and require ongoing racial impact analysis, centralize public defender function, implement automatic sealing and expunging for eligible arrests, require collection and public reporting, establish civil verdict disparity review unit. And then housing. So they're following almost like that California harms, like housing, policing and court system, stolen labor, unfair voting, terror, similar in terms of the categories. Harms on Black families, and we called it pathologizing the Black family. Reparations trust funds, so they're going to have two funds. I'm confused. State-sponsored life insurance for descendants. That's a slippery slope because they already got the police hunters. I'm just saying, some things you got to think through. The point is, and then they have some environmental stuff and more mental health stuff. I think it's important. So here they have the Black woman, the man, and family. Frankly, I feel like this family photo is what should be up there. That Black woman is gorgeous, but it's confusing because it doesn't, to me, you want all people included. That means you got to see it in the mailer. I would have thought this was a women's health thing just based on the picture. And so we have about 8 minutes of time. I wanted to make sure that, again, I plug this for the state of Illinois. You know, as a commissioner, I have some grace with commissions because these are unpaid positions. These are people who are really giving of their time and their expertise freely. And on a level, you got to humanize them and say they are doing the best that they think and know how to do. Whether you agree with it all or not, people are doing the best they know how to do. This morning, Dr. Grills was kind of talking down compensation, and she was talking about people basically being broken and, you know, needed healing. But like, she's a therapist and that's her wheelhouse. So of course she'd say that. If she was a surgeon, she might say, oh, you know, the people need proper medical care because of the health disparities, because they are an MD. And so, you know, somewhere in the midst of us being critical, we also have to have some level of humanity. And so as we create a reparations mindset, whether I care for particular people, don't care for them, there are times when we have to come together, like with this EEOC thing, in this reparations fight. There's no such thing as them or us. It's we against supremacy. And I don't even like to call that. I think it's more dependency, because if we weren't here, then what? So we got to preserve data collection at the EEOC. We got to preserve our history and our culture. We can't let an administration, including Hermeet Dhillon, coming into her position of power. We can't have people just coming into position of power and just decimating us, you know, generation after generation. People talked about the 300,000 Black women losing their jobs. Very few mainstream media covered the 200,000 Black men that lost their jobs, which means that our family systems were ravished in one fell swoop with that Doge business. Today, Elon Musk was on his X talking about his East Indian wife and how could he be racist. I don't know. How was Jefferson racist and chasing Sally Helms and having a configuration, a mathematical equation on how pregnant enslaved women were worth more because you get to keep their children and enslave them and or sell them. Like, just because you have sex with some person of color does not mean that you're not a racist. And I need people to like stop with letting people just think that they can say things that just are out of order. And so anyway, we covered a lot tonight, like we always do. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a live, but when I saw the survey come out and even my knee-jerk reaction was like, what is this and why now? But then I read it and I was like, yeah, it really does kind of look like the Repair Act, which is, you know, the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. That is the teaching tool that we teach from for people to self-advocate. So I don't know, maybe some of the folks that we were working with in Chicago brought some of these ideas forward. That would be great. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it does remind me a lot of that, which makes me feel like we're being effective in this space. And even though the photo is a little bit confusing, we got to make sure that people are taking that survey. So I will make sure to pump that out. I will make sure that I get links to the EEOC so people can make sure that by August 7th, whether you're faxing, mailing, snail mailing, however you're getting it to the EEOC to make your voice be heard. Again, I'm going to call in NAACP, Urban League. I'm going to call in the ADOS Foundation, Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, U.S. Freedmen Project, Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. Even if you guys are not necessarily focusing on national things, it doesn't matter. It affects you. It affects you. And because it affects you, you got to get this information out. So that is it. I am your host, Friday Jones. I don't know what I'm going to be talking about in 2 weeks, but I will be here talking about it. If you want to follow me on social media, I am Friday Jones on all things. I'm Friday Jones on all things. Just follow. And I definitely do try to follow back, whether it's on Instagram, X, Facebook, whatever. Facebook, not so much. I'm not even going to hold you, but if you're following me, you know, if you follow me on Facebook, you're getting things because what I post goes straight there. And so that's it. This has been our 11th episode. Each time we do one more, I get so excited. And so 11 is a builder number. Let's build. Until next time, I'm going to whip us on out of here. And yeah, I think that's it. Until next time, peace and reparations, everybody.